Okay, so here we go. You see how we're
Stocking
just
into
gonna,
the lining.
see how we're just gonna poke it in there?
This just messes with my mind right here.
Okay. See, we matched up. Did you see that? We want to make sure that we're matching it this way, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna stick that
So
in
you're
there.
just gonna tack it up top somehow and then stuff it in there? Is that
Yeah,
what
we're gonna
happens?
stuff it in here. Yep.
But I mean, you're gonna tack that at the very top of it.
We're gonna
and
sew it at the top.
And then she's gonna stuff it in. Then you're gonna, yeah.
Okay, so
This messes
make
with my
sure
mind. I
the
can't.
loop is in here, and we're gonna match up the seam.
Loop inside.
Loop is inside there. We're gonna match up. See how there's a seam there and a seam here. We're gonna match those two up, and we are going to use some pins here to hold this to make sure that this doesn't shift around. So I'm gonna put a pin on one side of the seam, and I'm gonna put another pin on the other side of the seam. And now instead of just going all the way around and pinning it, I'm gonna go over here to the other seam because I want to match this seam up. So there's my seam, and there's the seam on the inside. You can see the thread right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I want these two to match up like that. I'm gonna hold those with my fingers, and then I will grab 2 pins. One, I found another needle there for you. One pin on one side of the seam, and another pin on the other side of the seam, and that might be all the pins we need. We'll see. Now we'll just kind of go inside, we'll kind of stretch, and you can see how this is about right. There's no bunching on either side. More Sherpa falling off. Okay, now it's time to sew. And here, since you have a nice small arm, I think we can fit this in here so we don't have to do it like we did the
Yeah.
tiny stocking,
That
all
tiny
right?
one.
Now, it's going to be most bunchy here by the seam, so don't try to start there. Instead, put it in when you're past the seam, and then you'll start sewing, and then you'll come to that when you get toward the end. So lever down, hold the thread, put the needle down, and then we're ready to roll. You know, I think I'm going to take this up the stitch width because we don't necessarily want to have a basting stitch. We want to make sure that the stitches are tight here.
Okay.
So it was between 2 and 3 that's supposed to be, right?
Yep.
There's 2. Okay, here we go. And reverse. I'm going to slow down, and I'm going to make sure I pull it around. Take this pin out before I get too close to it because I don't want to go over it. If you go over the pin, you can do it going very, very slowly, but chances are you would break your needle, and then that's a real pain to try to put a new needle in. And you also want to go slow when you have this much thickness, especially if you're going to be using actual denim from jeans. I would suggest even putting your hand on the wheel and just guiding it with your hand as you go ever so slowly through this part. Okay, I'm going to lift up the foot, take this pin out again, and I'm just going to adjust a little bit to make sure. And again, if it's bunchy under there, it doesn't matter because no one's going to see it. This is the lining, and the Sherpa is going to be basically hiding it. We hope. Okay, we're coming up to the end here. I'm going to lift this up, and I'm going to squeeze some fabric under the foot just to alleviate some of the bunching. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to poke this. Well, I guess that's all right. I'm going to poke it under there. We have one more pin to take out, and then we're done with our pins. Here, I'm going to go slowly by hand. If you feel that the motor is ever going too hard, then it's good to stop. There we are. Our seam is locked because we met the other. We made it around. So here we go, up and out, and we trim it.
Oh, I'm at 5 minutes.